The transport ship docked at Aurora Station with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Maya pressed her small face against the viewport, eyes wide with excitement. She was 8 years old, and this massive station floating in space was going to be her new home. "Remember what we talked about, sweetie," her mother said, kneeling down to adjust Maya's jacket. "Some of the people here might seem different, but everyone is very nice." Maya nodded eagerly. She had seen pictures of aliens before, but never in person. Her father, a human diplomat, had accepted a position on Aurora Station, and Maya couldn't wait to make new friends. The airlock opened and the family stepped into the arrival terminal. It was enormous, with ceilings that stretched up so high Maya had to crane her neck to see them. Aliens of every shape and size moved through the space. Some walked on 2 legs like her, others on 4 or 6. Some floated and some slithered. A tall, crystalline being approached them. Its body seemed to be made of translucent blue material that caught the light in beautiful ways. This was their assigned greeter, a named Ara. "Welcome to Aurora Station," Ara said, her voice like wind chimes. Then she looked down at Maya and went very still. The colors in her crystalline body shifted from welcoming blue to a cautious orange. "This is your offspring." "Yes, this is our daughter, Maya," her father said proudly. Ara took a small step back. "I see. Well, let us proceed to your quarters." Maya thought it was strange that Ara stayed far ahead of them as they walked, but she was too busy looking at everything to worry about it. They passed a group of insect-like aliens with multiple arms, and Maya waved at them cheerfully. The insects froze, their antennae twitching wildly, and they quickly scattered into a side corridor. "That was weird," Maya said. Her parents exchanged glances but said nothing. The family's quarters were comfortable, with a large window overlooking the stars. Maya spent the first day unpacking and exploring their new home. The next day, her parents enrolled her in the station's youth education center, where children of all species learned together. Maya was so excited she could barely sleep the night before her first day. She picked out her favorite shirt, the one with a picture of Earth on it, and practically bounced out the door. The education center was full of young aliens. Maya saw children who sparkled like their adult counterparts, small thrax with soft exoskeletons that would harden as they grew, and even a few massive younglings who were already twice Maya's size. She walked up to a group of thrax children who were playing with building blocks. "Hi, can I play with you?" The thrax children looked at her. One of them clicked its mandibles nervously. "You are human," it said. "Yes, I'm Maya. What are your names?" The thrax children backed away slowly, their multiple eyes fixed on her face. One of them made a high-pitched chittering sound, and they all scattered to the other side of the room. Maya stood alone, confused and hurt. She tried to approach other groups, but the same thing kept happening. The children's colors shifted to alarmed orange. The younglings, despite being much bigger than her, moved away. Even the teacher, a gentle four-armed being called seemed uncomfortable when Maya raised her hand to ask questions. At lunch, Maya sat alone. She pulled out the sandwich her mother had made and took a bite. Across the room, she heard gasps. A child pointed at her with a trembling appendage. "It's showing its teeth," the child whispered loud enough for Maya to hear. "Look at those teeth." Maya touched her mouth, confused. She was just eating. What was wrong with that? The days turned into weeks, and things didn't get better. Maya tried everything she could think of to make friends, but nothing worked. She helped a thrax child reach a toy on a high shelf, and the child burst into tears. She smiled at a youngling, and it ran to its parents saying a predator had threatened it. The adults weren't much better. When Maya and her parents walked through the station corridors, other beings would press themselves against the walls to let them pass. Shopkeepers became nervous when the family entered their stores. Even the station's security chief, a massive warrior named who stood nearly 3 meters tall, seemed uneasy around 8-year-old Maya. One day, there was an emergency drill. Alarms blared throughout the station, and all the lights went dark except for the dim emergency strips along the floor. The drill simulated a power failure, and everyone was supposed to navigate to the designated safe zones. Maya had studied the station maps carefully. She loved exploring and had memorized all the corridors near their quarters. When the darkness came, she simply followed the emergency lights, walking calmly toward the nearest safe zone. Around her, she could hear panic. Adult aliens stumbled and called out for help. Some species needed specific light wavelengths to see properly, and the emergency lighting wasn't enough for them. Maya heard crying, frightened voices, and the sound of people bumping into walls. She saw an adult who had fallen, their crystalline body flickering with distress. "Are you okay?" Maya asked, reaching out to help. They made a sound like breaking glass and scrambled away from her, despite being injured. Maya stood there in the dark, her hand still outstretched, feeling more alone than ever. After the drill ended and the lights came back on, Maya overheard the adults talking. The who had fallen was telling others about the small predator that had stalked through the darkness without fear, that had approached them with those forward-facing eyes that could see in conditions that left other species blind and helpless. Maya went home and cried. She didn't understand what she had done wrong. She was just trying to help. Her parents tried to comfort her, but they were struggling too. Her father's diplomatic work was becoming harder because other species were uncomfortable meeting with him. Her mother couldn't attend social gatherings because the other parents made excuses to leave when she arrived. The station's chief of security was assigned to investigate what staff members were calling the human problem. He was a warrior, decorated and respected, and he prided himself on his courage. But even he felt the instinctive unease when he approached the quarters to interview the family. He expected to find dangerous adults. What he found was a small, sad child who loved to draw pictures of her family and the friends she hoped to make someday. "Why is everyone afraid of me?" Maya asked him, her voice small. Looked at this tiny being, this child who barely reached his knee, and felt ashamed of his own fear. "I do not know," he admitted, "but I will try to understand." He began spending time with the family, documenting his observations for his report. He watched Maya play alone in the common areas. He saw her try again and again to make friends, only to be rejected. He noticed that she never showed anger or aggression, only confusion and sadness. One day, Maya asked if she could play a game with him, agreed, expecting something simple. Maya pulled out a holographic tactical simulation game, one that himself had programmed years ago. It was designed for training security personnel, far too complex for a child. But Maya played it naturally. She predicted patrol patterns, found weaknesses in defensive setups, and adapted her strategies instantly when changed his approach. Within an hour, she had won 3 matches in a row, sat back, stunned. No one had ever beaten him at this game, not once in 15 years. "That was fun," Maya said, grinning. "Can we play again tomorrow?" Looked at her smile, at those teeth that his instincts screamed were a predator's teeth, at those forward-facing eyes that tracked movement with unsettling precision. He realized something that chilled him. This child wasn't even trying to be strategic. This was just how her mind worked naturally. This was her playing. He filed his report with the station director, trying to be fair and factual. But even his carefully chosen words couldn't hide the truth. Humans, even human children, possessed capabilities that evolution had not granted to most other species. They could see well in darkness. They could track patterns and predict behaviors with startling accuracy. They had stamina that seemed impossible for their size. And most disturbing of all, they had the biological markers of apex predators. The station's psychologist, Dr. Red's report and began her own investigation. She was, and her species could sense emotional patterns and psychological states. When she observed Maya, she detected something that terrified her. Maya was a persistence hunter. Not actively, not consciously, but it was built into her very nature. Could sense it in the way Maya's determination never faded, in how she kept trying to make friends despite constant rejection, in how she approached every problem with patient, methodical focus. This wasn't malice. This was simply what humans were. Doctor documented her findings in a report titled The Phenomenon. She described how humanity's evolution as persistence hunters had shaped every aspect of their psychology and biology. They didn't give up. They didn't quit. They endured beyond all reasonable limits. The report spread throughout the station. Parents read it and held their children closer. Security personnel added it to their briefings. Even the station director felt a chill when reading about humanity's true nature. Ambassador L of the Confederacy called for an emergency session of the station's governing council. When the council convened, L presented a formal complaint that had been signed by representatives of 43 different species. "We demand that human juveniles be quarantined for public safety," L said, his crystalline body pulsing with agitated red light. "The child has created an atmosphere of fear on this station. This cannot continue." Maya's father stood to defend his family, but his hands shook as he spoke. He knew the fear was real, even if he didn't fully understand it. The council debated for hours. Finally, the station director made a decision. "The family will not be quarantined, but we require them to undergo mandatory cultural integration programming. They must learn to make themselves less threatening." That night, Maya's parents explained what had happened. They told her she would need to take special classes to learn how to act around other species. She would need to hide her teeth when she smiled. She would need to move more slowly, less confidently. She would need to make herself small and harmless. "I'll do it," Maya whispered. "I'll be whatever they need me to be. I just want friends." Her mother hugged her tight, tears streaming down her face. In her room that night, Maya looked at herself in the mirror. She practiced smiling with her lips closed, moving with slow, deliberate steps, making herself seem smaller and weaker than she was. She practiced until it hurt. 10 years passed and Maya was no longer a child. She was 18 now, taller and stronger, but she still remembered how to make herself seem harmless. She had perfected the art of closed-mouth smiles, slow movements, and downcast eyes. She had learned to be less human. The years on Aurora Station had been lonely but educational. Her parents' mandatory cultural integration program had become her entire life. She learned about dozens of alien species, their fears and customs, their biology and psychology. She also learned that no matter how careful she was, she would always be feared. When Maya turned 17, she made a decision that shocked her parents. She applied to Frontier Academy, an elite military and diplomatic school that accepted students from across the galaxy. "Why would you want to go there?" her mother asked, worried. Maya looked at her mother with eyes that had grown harder over the years. "Because I'm tired of hiding. If I'm going to live in this galaxy, I need to understand it better, and maybe they need to understand me." Frontier Academy was located on a moon orbiting a gas giant. The campus was built into the side of a mountain, with training facilities that extended deep underground. When Maya arrived, she was one of only 3 humans in a class of 200 students. The other 2 humans were older, 4th-year students who had learned to keep to themselves. They warned Maya about what to expect. "They'll avoid you in social settings," said a stocky young man with tired eyes. "Just keep your head down and get through it." "Is that what you've been doing?" Maya asked. Looked away. "It's what you have to do." But Maya hadn't spent 10 years learning to hide just to spend 4 more years doing the same thing. She decided to approach Frontier Academy differently. The first week was orientation and basic assessments. Students were tested on their physical capabilities, mental acuity, and species-specific skills. Maya watched as different species excelled at different things. The Thrax were incredible engineers. They could sense emotional states. They were powerful warriors. When it was Maya's turn for the physical assessment, she could feel everyone watching. The instructor, unnamed, set the endurance test to the standard difficulty for her size class. Maya completed it easily. She wasn't even breathing hard. Stared at the results, then looked at Maya with his 4 eyes narrowed. There must be an error. Run it again. Level 5 difficulty. Level 5 was meant for species twice her size. Maya nodded and ran it again. She completed it with only slightly more effort. The other students whispered among themselves. The mandibles clicked in agitation. Level 7. Level 7 was what elite warriors trained at. Maya ran it and finished, though this time she was breathing hard and sweat soaked her shirt. When she stepped off the treadmill, the entire assessment room was silent. How? A Thrax student finally asked. Maya wiped her face with a towel. Humans are endurance specialists. We evolved to chase prey for hours, sometimes days. Our bodies are built for it. The explanation didn't comfort anyone. In the survival course, where students were dropped in a hostile environment with minimal supplies, Maya lasted twice as long as any other species. She went 72 hours without food while maintaining full cognitive function. She navigated by the stars, caught small creatures for food, and built shelter from materials she found. In tactical simulations, Maya excelled at pattern recognition. She could watch an opponent's movements for a few minutes and predict their next actions with eerie accuracy. But the social isolation was worse than at Aurora Station. The other students didn't just avoid her, they actively worked to exclude her. Study groups were formed without her. Training partners conveniently had other commitments. Tables would clear when she sat down. Maya endured it all with the same patience she had learned as a child. She studied alone, trained alone, and ate alone. Then came the incident that changed everything. It was during a combat simulation exercise in the Academy's 4th year. Teams of mixed species were supposed to complete an objective while avoiding or defeating opposing forces. Maya had been placed on a team, though her teammates made it clear they weren't happy about it. The team leader was a named Vex, large even for his species. He assigned Maya to rear guard duty, essentially keeping her out of the main action. Maya accepted the role without complaint. The simulation began well. Vex's team moved through the virtual environment efficiently, using each species' strengths. But then something went wrong. An unexpected enemy force appeared, and in the chaos of the firefight, a rockslide was triggered in the simulation. Vex was caught by falling debris. The simulation was designed to cause pain feedback, not injury, but Vex was trapped and taking simulated damage that would soon eliminate him from the exercise. The rest of the team was pinned down by enemy fire. They couldn't reach Vex without exposing themselves to elimination. Maya assessed the situation in seconds. She plotted a route through the rockslide zone that would minimize her exposure. Then she ran. Enemy fire tracked her movement, and she felt the sting of simulated hits, but she didn't stop. She reached Vex, grabbed his armored form with both hands, and pulled. Vex weighed easily twice what she did, but Maya planted her feet and hauled with everything she had. The simulation registered that she was moving an object that should have been too heavy for her. The system paused for a moment, checking if there was a glitch, but the sensors confirmed it. The small human was actually moving the large. Maya dragged Vex to cover, took more simulated hits, and finally got him to safety. Her health indicator was flashing red, almost eliminated, but Vex was safe. The simulation ended. The lights came up. Maya collapsed to her knees, gasping for breath. Vex stood slowly, staring at her. The entire observation deck was silent. Everyone had watched what just happened. "Why?" Vex finally asked. "I have been nothing but cold to you. My team excluded you. Why would you risk elimination to save me?" Maya looked up at him, too tired to remember to hide her teeth as she spoke. "Because you're on my team. That's what teammates do." Something shifted in the room. It was subtle, but it was there. The other students looked at each other, uncertain. After that day, things began to change slowly. Vex started sitting near Maya in the dining hall, not at her table, not yet, but near enough that it was noticed. Other students saw this and reconsidered their own assumptions. A Thrax engineering student named approached Maya one day with a problem he couldn't solve. His pride was at war with his need for help, but finally need won. Maya looked at the equations, saw the pattern he was missing, and explained it simply. Santeni twitched in surprise. The solution was elegant and obvious once she pointed it out. "Your brain works differently," said. "You see patterns we miss." "I think it's because humans had to track animals," Maya explained. "We had to notice tiny details, predict where prey would go, understand behavior patterns. It became part of how we think." Considered this. That predatory focus makes you good at solving problems. "Is that such a bad thing?" Maya asked. Thought for a long moment. Perhaps not. Word spread that the human was good at tactical analysis and pattern recognition. A few brave students started asking for her help with assignments. Maya helped them all, never asking for anything in return. During a xenobiology class in Maya's third year, the instructor asked students to present on their own species' evolution. Most students gave basic presentations. When it was Maya's turn, she decided to be completely honest. She stood before the class and began. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We chased our prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. This shaped everything about us." The room tensed. Everyone knew this, but hearing a human say it directly was different. Maya continued, "But why did we hunt this way? Because we were weak. We had no claws, no armor, no venom. We couldn't sprint fast or climb high. We were small and vulnerable, so we developed the only advantage we could. We learned to never give up." She pulled up images of Earth. "We evolved caring for our sick and elderly. We carried our injured. We shared food with those too weak to hunt. We formed communities because alone we died. Our persistence didn't come from strength. It came from love." The class was silent. This wasn't the story they expected. "Yes, we can track and hunt," Maya said. "Yes, we have forward-facing eyes and sharp teeth. Yes, we can go without food or sleep longer than most species. But all of those things developed because we cared too much to let our families starve. We endured because giving up meant the people we loved would die." A student raised a crystalline appendage. "But that makes you more dangerous, not less. You would endure any hardship to protect what you love. That persistence in defense of others is terrifying." Maya nodded slowly. "Yes, I suppose it is. But is it more terrifying than a species that abandons its weak? Is persistence in protecting others really something to fear?" The class had no answer for that. The years at Frontier Academy passed. Maya graduated with honors, though she never fully escaped the wariness that followed her. But she had made some genuine friends, who now appreciated how human problem-solving could fix impossible engineering challenges. Vex, who had learned that small didn't mean weak. Even Hen, a young who realized that human pattern recognition wasn't predatory, it was empathetic. They read emotions and predicted behavior because they wanted to understand others, not hunt them. On graduation day, Commander, the instructor who had tested Maya so harshly in her first week, approached her privately. "I owed you an apology," he said. "I tried to make you fail. I set impossible standards because I was afraid." "I know," Maya said. "And yet you never complained. You never showed anger. You just kept trying." His mandibles clicked softly. That persistence, that refusal to give up even when treated unfairly, that is what makes humans both terrifying and admirable. I finally understand. Maya was offered a position in Earth's diplomatic corps. At 22 years old, she became one of the youngest ambassadors in human history. Her assignment was to the Galactic Council, the governing body that made decisions affecting all member species. But not everyone was happy about humanity's growing presence in galactic affairs. The hegemony, a powerful empire that valued genetic purity and species segregation, had been watching humanity's expansion with growing alarm. When Maya arrived at the council headquarters, she found the had prepared a presentation about the human threat. Ambassador of the hegemony stood before the assembled representatives of 200 species. "We have documented evidence," announced, "that humanity represents a clear and present danger to galactic stability." The presentation began. Images of human military vessels, charts showing human population growth and territorial expansion, reports of human adaptability in environments that other species found uninhabitable, analysis of human psychology and the disturbing persistence they demonstrated in all endeavors. The final image was of a young Maya at Aurora Station, her forward-facing eyes looking directly at the camera, teeth showing in what was meant to be a friendly smile but looked, to most species, like a predator's threat display. "This is Maya," said, "also known as the Terror of Aurora Station, a human child who created such fear that the station almost quarantined all humans. This small being defeated warriors in tactical games, showed no fear in conditions that traumatized other species, and demonstrated the unsettling characteristics that make humans dangerous." Maya sat in the human delegation area listening. She had known this was coming. They had been building their case for months. "The hegemony demands action," continued. "Humanity must be quarantined to their home system. They must accept population controls. They must submit to monitoring. If the Council refuses, the hegemony will consider it an act of endorsing a dangerous predator species, and we will respond accordingly." It was a threat of war. The room erupted in debate. Some species agreed that humans were unsettling. Others argued that fear alone wasn't grounds for such extreme measures. The debate raged for hours. Finally, the council chair called for order. "Ambassador, you have the right to respond to these accusations. The council recognizes the human delegation." Maya stood. She was 28 now, 10 years older than the frightened teenager who had entered Frontier Academy. She had spent those years preparing for exactly this moment. She walked to the speaking platform, her movements measured and calm. Every eye in the chamber followed her, some with curiosity, some with fear, some with sympathy. "Thank you, Council Chair," Maya began. "Ambassador has presented a compelling case. I won't insult this council's intelligence by denying the facts. Every point raised is true." Surprise rippled through the chamber. This wasn't the defense they expected. "Yes, humans are persistent hunters," Maya continued. "We evolved to chase prey for days until it collapsed. Yes, we have forward-facing eyes and prominent canines. Yes, we can endure conditions that break other species. Yes, I personally terrified an entire space station when I was 8 years old." She paused, letting that sink in. But Ambassador has made a critical error. He has presented facts without context. He has shown you what we are capable of, but not why. Maya activated her own presentation. The first image was Earth, blue and green and beautiful. "This is our home, a death world by galactic standards, extreme weather, aggressive predators, diseases that evolve faster than most species can adapt. Humans shouldn't have survived here. We were weak, small, slow. We had no natural weapons or defenses." The next image showed ancient humans, primitive and vulnerable. "So how did we survive? By caring for each other. We couldn't abandon our elderly because they held knowledge. We couldn't leave our children because they were our future. We couldn't ignore our sick because they might be us tomorrow." More images appeared. Humans carrying wounded companions, humans sharing food, humans protecting children from predators. "We became persistence hunters not because we were strong, but because we were desperate," Maya said. "We chased animals for days because that was the only way to feed our families." Every adaptation Ambassador listed, Every capability he fears developed from love and necessity, not malice. She switched to images of human rescue workers. You fear our persistence. This is what it looks like. Humans who ran into burning buildings while others evacuated. Humans who searched for survivors for weeks after disasters. Humans who stayed with dying patients when everyone else had given up hope. Images of human volunteers in disaster zones. Human doctors in plague areas. Human engineers fixing broken stations. You fear our stamina. We use it to outlast emergencies, to keep working when others need rest, to be there when everyone else is exhausted. Images of human peacekeepers, taking fire to protect alien civilians. You fear our pattern recognition. We use it to understand other species better, to predict needs before they're spoken, to build bridges between different cultures. She turned off the presentation and faced the council directly. Ambassador showed you a picture of me as a child and called me the terror of Aurora Station. Let me tell you what that terrifying 8-year-old was doing. Maya's voice grew soft. I was trying to make friends. I was helping other children reach toys they couldn't get. I was walking through darkened corridors without fear because I didn't realize others were frightened. I was smiling and playing and hopping anyone would want to be my friend. The chamber was completely silent. I spent 10 years learning to hide my teeth, to move slowly, to make myself seem less threatening. I perfected the art of being less human. And even then, even after all that training, I was still feared. She looked at the delegation. Ambassador wants to quarantine us, to control our population, to monitor us like dangerous animals. And maybe he's right to be afraid. Not because we're dangerous to you, but because we're dangerous to everything that threatens the people we care about. Maya's voice strengthened. You asked what humans will do if you try to quarantine us. I'll tell you honestly, we will endure, we will persist. We will never stop trying to protect the species we've befriended. Not because we're conquerors, but because that's what humans do. We don't abandon our allies, ever. She turned to address the entire council. But here's what the galaxy seems to have missed. The persistence you fear, the endurance that unsettles you, the determination that seems predatory, that same drive makes us the best allies you could ever have. When your station is failing, humans will stay to help others evacuate. When your people are sick, human doctors will volunteer. When your wars turn desperate, human soldiers will stand beside you when everyone else retreats. Maya pulled up one final image. It was of a human soldier, bloodied and exhausted, carrying an injured through a battlefield. This was taken on Ara Prime during the Sector War. That human, Lieutenant Sarah, carried 12 wounded to safety over 6 hours while under constant fire. She was hit 3 times. She kept going. When asked why, she said, "They needed help and I could help." That's what humans do. She looked directly at Ambassador. You want to quarantine us? Fine. But know that you're not protecting the galaxy from a threat. You're depriving it of the species that refuses to give up on others. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Maya returned to her seat. The council chair called for a recess to consider both presentations. The debate that followed lasted 3 days. Species that had once feared humans reconsidered. Stories emerged of humans who had helped, had sacrificed, had endured hardships to protect others. Now a respected engineer, about how human problem-solving had saved his entire research team. Vex, a military commander, described how human persistence had turned impossible missions into successes. Even old security chief from Aurora Station sent a statement describing how young Maya had tried so hard to help, to be good, to make friends despite constant rejection. When the vote finally came, humanity was granted full council membership. The margin was narrow, only 15 votes, but it was enough. The delegation stood. "This is not over," Ambassador said coldly. "You have unleashed a predator species on the galaxy. When humans show their true nature, remember that we warned you." They walked out. Several other species followed. The threat of war hung in the air. But others approached Maya with respect, some with friendship. Hen, who had befriended her at Frontier Academy and was now a diplomat, embraced her. "You did it," Hen said. "You made them see." "Some of them," Maya corrected, "not all." They made good on their threat. 6 months later, they launched a coordinated assault on 3 Council border stations. It was meant to test Council resolve and demonstrate that the unified species couldn't stand against the hegemony's military might. What they didn't expect was how humans would respond. Human vessels were smaller than most military ships, carrying fewer weapons, but they never retreated. When other species' shields failed and they to repair, human ships stayed in formation, taking fire meant for damaged allies. When ammunition ran low, human crews got creative, using debris fields and asteroids as weapons. Most importantly, human persistence in battle inspired other species to fight harder. Seeing small human vessels facing down massive battle cruisers without flinching made others braver. The humans weren't the strongest fighters, but their refusal to give up changed the entire dynamic of every battle. The war lasted 2 years. It wasn't won by superior firepower or brilliant strategy. It was won by endurance. The Council forces, led by human persistence, simply outlasted the. Every time the hegemony thought victory was near, the Council forces. Every time the expected retreat, humans stood firm. Maya, promoted to security director, coordinated the Council's defense. She worked around the clock, sleeping in brief snatches, eating at her desk. Her staff, made up of multiple species, tried to match her pace and couldn't. But they tried anyway, inspired by her example. The turning point came during the Battle of Sector 9. Maya was on the command ship when it was struck by fire. The ship was damaged, life support failing, and the crew was ordered to evacuate. Maya stayed at her post, coordinating the defense even as the ship's systems failed around her. She kept working until every other crew member had reached escape pods. Only then did she head for her own pod. But she never made it. The ship's final system failure happened while she was still aboard. An explosion threw her against a bulkhead. She was badly injured, trapped in a corridor that was venting atmosphere. A boarding party found her. They had entered the ship to retrieve intelligence data. Their commander, a warrior named, came across Maya struggling to reach a still-functioning communications console, despite injuries that should have killed her. "Why?" demanded. "Your ship is dead, your crew is gone, why do you still fight?" Maya, blood streaming from a head wound, looked up at him. "Because there's a civilian transport 3 kilometers from here. They need to know about your boarding parties. I need to warn them." Stared at this small, broken human who was more concerned about protecting others than saving herself. In that moment, he understood what his empire had been fighting. "You would die to warn strangers?" he asked. "Wouldn't you?" Maya replied, then collapsed. Made a decision that would change the war. He carried Maya to his own medical bay. He had her treated, and when she woke up, he told her that he was requesting a meeting with Council leadership. "Your people fought us for 2 years," said. "You never won a major battle. You lost more ships than we did. By every military metric, you should have surrendered months ago." "But we didn't," Maya said quietly. "No, you did not. And watching you fight, watching humans drag wounded companions from destroyed ships, watching you keep going long past the point where any other species would quit, I finally understood what we were fighting. Not conquerors, not predators, but something far more dangerous." "What's that?" Maya asked. "A species that will never abandon those it has sworn to protect. A species whose persistence comes not from aggression but from loyalty." His mandibles clicked. "My people have been conquerors for generations. We understand dominance, but we do not understand this thing you do, this refusal to quit when protecting others. It is not rational, it should not be possible, and it is unstoppable." 3 months later, they signed a peace treaty. The terms were favorable to the Council, because the hegemony finally understood that they could never outlast human determination. The war ended not with humanity's military victory, but with its moral one. Maya recovered from her injuries, though she bore the scars. She returned to Aurora Station as Council Ambassador, a choice she specifically requested. The station where she had been feared as a child was now where she would represent humanity. On her first day back, she visited the education center. A new generation of children played there, mixing freely in ways that had been impossible 20 years ago. Human children played alongside.